All right, welcome everybody to the comic panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Talon.
And I'm Jacob.
And today we are covering The Incal, written by Alejandro Jodarowski, art by Mobius, colored by Yves Chaland, Isabel Bememeli, Isabel Bellamy Jonette, translated by Sasha Watson and Justin Kelly. So this book, in some circles, considered the greatest work of comics of all time, next to Watchmen.
I don't think that's true.
That
Well,
that is impressive.
You don't agree with that, or you don't think that it's true that people say that?
I don't agree.
Okay.
I'm sure people say it.
Yeah, originally published in French in Metal Hurrielent, which when brought over to the United States, published in English in Heavy Metal. Yeah.
So can you expand Heavy Metal? What does that mean?
So Heavy Metal is a magazine mostly featuring comics, and it was published in Europe, primarily France, and basically at some point, because of the comics and kind of its more like adult themes, it got brought over to the United States and found great success over there.
Over here?
Yeah, over here, over there. I mean, in the United States because it's from Europe initially.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. And so then what is Humanoids?
Humanoids, so that's just who published this version of the book, because it's gone through multiple publications since originally being featured in the magazine.
Gotcha. So it was originally, would you say serial? Is it the term?
Yeah, it was serialized in Heavy Metal.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think actually Humanoids might be created by Jodarowski to publish his stuff. I'd have to look into that again a little bit closer, but
okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere that he is involved with Humanoids.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, yeah, this story, it was originally conceived by Jodarowski. It comes from his work trying to create a film adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune. And yeah, I learned that he had initially intended to make a 14-hour film. It was to have multiple people who are considered kind of very like psychedelic influences. It was going to have H.R. Geiger. It was going to have trying to remember who else. It was going to have music by Pink Floyd. Yeah, lots of different influences, basically. Well, not just influences, but they were going to be on in the movie. Orson Welles was going to be in it, Salvador Dali. Yeah, and his son, Brontis Jodarowski, was going to be the lead, Paul Atreides.
Who was the person with the last name of Geiger?
H.R. Geiger.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And yeah, that movie went really poorly. Well, I mean, it went well, but then it went poorly in terms of production. In fact, Frank Herbert traveled to Europe in 1976 to find that 2 million of the 9.5 million budget had already been spent in pre-production.
Yikes.
Yeah, and the 14-hour movie, of course, the script was the size of a phone book.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Jodarowski took creative liberties with the source material. And so basically, like, the rights to the filming were sold to a different company. But that did result in multiple inspirations for other films, including Star Wars, Alien, The Terminator, Flash Gordon, and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Because there was something that came from Jodorowsky's endeavor.
Yes.
Okay. And then that thing inspired others.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, and in particular, Alien was actually worked on by Jodarowski. He collaborated with H.R. Geiger, with Mobius, two other guys, O'Bannon and Foss, Chris Foss, and I don't know what O'Bannon's first name is, but so yeah, they helped create the look of Alien.
Man, whatever they produced, I hope it's something special for like what 5 different franchises.
Yeah,
to be like, yeah, we're gonna inspire ourselves in some way or another from this.
Right. Yeah, and that's like I read this particular edition that I have here of the Incal is introduced by Brian Michael Bendis, which was kind of weird, in my opinion, to choose him. But he basically, what he chose to use that space for was to say, please stop being influenced by the Incal.
Wow.
Or well, more to be more correct, you can be influenced by the Incal. Please stop stealing from the Incal.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Because apparently this comic has also influenced a lot of other comics work. But yeah, so basically what happens is that, like I said, that that movie never gets fully made. But Jodarowski has this whole 14-hour script and pre-production, and images. So he decides that he's going to make a comic anyway that's kind of takes a lot of the work that he had done and kind of transfers it over. Of course, this is not, the story of Paul Atreides and the things that happen in Dune. But supposedly it's a lot of that world, but with a lot of the things that Jodarowski likes to talk about in his works.
Yeah, I kind of see that with maybe not with our protagonist, who is
John Difool.
Oh yeah, Difool. Yeah. Maybe not with him, but some of the other stuff, like there is a Emperor of Humanity, and a lot of the duality, talking about the ultimate androgyny, because that's part of the deal with Paul, is he's a dude, but he knows the magic of the all woman coven in Dune.
Right.
So I guess I can kind of see it.
I'm glad one of us does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but there's other stuff, there's that weird talking bird that's around. I don't think that's in Dune, I'll be honest.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
To be fair, I have very little experience with Dune.
Yeah, I also know very little. Well, I feel like I know some stuff about it. I have not read very much of the source material. yeah, I mean, I feel like I've read a lot of it, but it's just very, very long. And there's multiple books, and I've only read a portion of the first book. But yeah, jumping into this book, the Incal, basically, as we said, it follows John Difool. He is a Class R private detective in this megapolis kind of giant sci-fi world. And we find him starting off. He's about to die via falling into the giant acid lake at the center of the city.
That's like very, very, very far down.
Yeah.
Is it explained why that's a thing? Did I just miss that?
No.
Okay.
It's just there,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, it's popularly used to commit suicide.
That's true.
Like, listen, I am not opposed to having cool thing with very little explanation in your universe. I think that's fine for the most part. But I would like some explanation for some things.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of that in this book, just for the record. Actually, the 3 books, we should also iterate,
right.
like, we read 3 of these books.
Yes, yeah.
Because they're published in, like, 50-page volumes.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a little confusing how, you know, versus like how they were originally published, you know, in serial format versus like, you know, later publishing. But yeah, we read the Black Incal, which is book 1.
The Illuminous Incal.
The Illuminous Incal.
And then something about a trip falling.
Yeah.
Where this lies, something like that.
Let me see. I can.
What Lies Beneath.
What Lies Beneath? Yes. I don't know if it's Luminous. Yeah. What Lies Beneath. So, yeah, that's and I kind of chose that you know, after reading just the Black Incal, and I was like, this is only 50 pages and it feels kind of incomplete. Like I'm just kind of like, okay, that was technically a part of a story, but not, you know, yeah. And I feel like now after reading 3 parts, I will say that it does kind of feel like maybe, I don't think that there is any more like direct sequels to this. I could be wrong about that though. But it does feel like to get the whole story, you have to read all 6 parts.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Oh, actually, no. I see. There is, there's the Incal, which is this whole 6-part book. I have a physical version with me right now. And then Final Incal is after it. And then there's also Before the Incal, which is a prequel.
Interesting.
And Deconstructing the Incal. Which I don't know if that's actually a story or if it's like a breakdown. But yeah, so okay, there is more to this story. But also I just felt like 3 chapters was enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so getting back to kind of what happens in this, like I said, John Difool is falling into the lake of acid in the middle of the city, and he's swooped up by the police before he can land. They interrogate him, and so he starts to tell a story that he was hired by a woman to basically like be her bodyguard kind of for the night. And then she had strict rules that she had to be like home by like I think midnight. And then she goes out and parties and is having a really good time, and then, you know, John, and she offers a lot of money to John Difool, so he's very serious about this job, you know. So she is basically, has taken, drugs, and she is currently sleeping with somebody, and she is like, I don't want to go, and he's basically like, you said that you have to be home. So he shoots the dog-headed person.
Kill Wolfhead,
yeah, as we learn his name later. Shoots him in the ear so that basically he'll get off of her, and then, he'll take her home. But it is too late. She's revealed to have used magic to look like a young woman, but she's actually a very, very old woman. And now, basically the contract is off for her because, John did not complete his mission of getting her home soon enough. And Kill Wolfhead is very angry at him. So they're both angry at him.
Yep.
And
it's really a no-win situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he goes off running. And yeah, he's being chased. There's a lot of turns in this book.
Yeah. You don't have to go through every single one.
Right, yeah. But basically what ends up happening is that while being chased, he is given this small white pyramid called the Incal. And he basically, like, the people that give it to him, which are these weird kind of ape man looking things that are also orange though.
An orangutan.
Yeah, a little bit orangutan-ish. And they start melting, and they're actually underneath that. They're like these type of aliens.
Called the Bergs.
The Bergs, yeah. And so, yeah, basically that's where his story to the police stopped, though. Actually, before being given the Incal and them melting and all of that, he says that he just like gets knocked out. But in truth, he's given the Incal, and so he goes back home. He tries to kind of just relax, but he can't. And then people come looking for the Incal, basically.
Yeah.
And they're like beating down on his apartment door and stuff. So he hides it. He goes with them. Eventually, though, it turns out, he doesn't have the Incal because he hid it. He hid it inside of his pet concrete seagull.
Yeah. Concrete bird seagull.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look like a particular kind of bird.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's yeah. It's definitely some sort of bird. Probably.
Yeah.
But he'd fed the Incal to it, and so now it talks, and it is healing people.
Doing miracles.
Yeah.
He goes, he has I guess in this world, an apartment is called a con-apt.
Yes.
Or a con-apt. And so that's where his bird is. And when he goes back, he sees a whole bunch of people crowding around. And they're all like, let's get healed. Get the bird. And he's like, get out of my way. Why are you all here?
Yeah, John is like pretty much like, everybody leave. I don't care if they're curing your blindness and doing all this other miracles. Like, it's my bird, go.
Yeah.
And also he kind of realizes too that's probably because of the Incal. Like, doesn't totally understand what it is or why it is, but it's like, that's the only thing that changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, he takes what is his bird's name though? Depot. Right. Takes Depot, forces it to cough up.
Choke something.
Yeah, cough up the Incal. And so he changes back. Before he was like luminous, he was glowing too.
Yep.
But yeah, now he's been changed so he can still talk. Whereas before he was just a bird that couldn't talk. And yeah, but he can no longer do miracles because he does not have the Incal in him. Yeah, and then there's a lot more chasing.
Yep. If I remember correctly, I don't remember how this happens, but he ends up in Techno City, I think is the place.
Right.
And that's the beginning of
he
the
gets
second.
picked up by the president's guards, and then they go to talk to the president, who is in a new clone body.
Oh yeah, the presidential cloning, the 9th presidential cloning.
Which, I mean, is an interesting concept. Wish that was elaborated on more. Difool runs away from that, gets on the train, he talks to the Incal. The Incal separates him into 4 versions of himself.
Yeah.
Which I guess are, one is, I don't know.
It's
There's
like
probably
anger,
some person.
fear, greed, and maybe goodness.
No.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of. I mean, it's like
I'm thinking this blue one with the wings here is goodness.
Well, no, it's more like his logical side, because I think that they're not.
Oh, okay.
They're not all good and bad necessarily. But it represents his head basically, and it also they're also elemental, so there's air, water, fire, and earth, and it's his head, his chest, his pelvis, and his legs.
Is that what that means? That okay?
Yeah.
They had a weird panel that I guess that's what that meant.
Yeah. And so, yeah, basically, he thinks, logically, and then there's, more of a, I don't know, yeah, you said fear, and, that's part of it, but it's, his more, it's in, the emotions that come from,
not
just
having faith or something like that.
Yeah, kind of. The feelings that you feel in your chest, sadness and fear and all of that.
Okay.
And then the fire one is obviously anger and just but also attraction and things like that. And then the legs are sloth and depression and kind of keeping things the same. Complacency, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically they, the 4 of them are supposed to decide who will, basically get to continue to exist and take on the power of the Incal. But they can't decide, and they all want it, and so they all get it, I guess, and John Difool basically comes back together.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot that's you piece together there.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly obvious.
Yeah.
All right, because so he's headed, while he's talking to the Incal, he's on his way to something that will tear him apart.
Right.
And used for the Homeo robot? Oh, the Homeo and the word we can't say over the air.
Well, it's not just that. It is said that all their robots are constructed out of dead humans, which is odd and isn't really a robot then.
Well, it's a cyborg or android. Well, maybe not android, but cyborg.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's weird. Why? How is this the most efficient process?
So if you think about it, So there's a movie called Soylent Green. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah.
So
That
it's
takes the food out of the people.
Yeah,
Spoiler alert.
yeah. So it's efficient, or maybe not efficient, but like conserving.
That at least makes sense because it's people eating people. It becomes a self-sustaining economy. This is not people eating people.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that we agree with any of that. That's all of that's wrong. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, these guys are like making weird like robot spiders that are eating suns at some point.
Yeah. The
And they're gonna
technos.
use the Incal for purposes unknown.
Yeah.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Right. Yeah. In fact, we briefly mentioned but didn't explain that at some point John Difool is able to start talking to the Incal. He once he basically absorbs it, he can, communicate with it easier, but he also, its powers are faith-based essentially, and so he kind of has to give himself to the Incal in order to use its powers. Yeah. And he basically kind of just, in order to infiltrate the Techno's base, he gets on the conveyor belt that chops up the dead bodies to make them into robots.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets really scared, and he's like, I may have this power, but I'm like, I don't know how to turn it on and off just that easy, So, he tries to escape the, the blades and all that stuff, and he gets captured because of that. And they capture him and put him in a machine where he's strapped down. Meanwhile, we get introduced to the Meta Baron. He's a bald guy.
With a missing ear.
With a missing ear. But more importantly, he's also an assassin.
Mm-hmm.
The deadliest in the universe, I believe they call him at some point. And he comes to the base of operations of the woman who had hired John Difool at the beginning.
Oh, is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, and she has Kill Wolfhead, the man with a wolf's head, basically as her,
boss or something like that.
Well, not boss, I'd say thrall.
I don't know what that means.
Like somebody in her command.
Oh, he is.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I was saying she is his boss.
Yes. Yeah, she is the boss. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Also, I just realized her throne is made out of letter A's, like the letter A, and I'm like, that's weird. Why?
Because she's the queen of Amok.
Yeah.
Which I think is also, it's either affiliated with the Bergs or affiliated against them. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Well, no, because the Bergs are the aliens, right? They're new.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because a bunch of people always say oh wow, Bergs, that's like a real thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is like lizard people.
Yeah.
No, that's a conspiracy,
Right.
But no, I guess they're around and currently invading the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess maybe not the universe, the galaxy.
Yeah, the galaxy is probably more apt.
And going back to this woman. No, this woman, her name is Tanata.
Yes.
Which we find out later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she has captured the Meta Baron's son to basically convince him to hunt down John Difool. And
get the Incal back from him, correct?
Yeah, I don't think she even goes that far. That is her reason, but she's like, it doesn't really matter. You go get this guy.
Gotcha.
or else we will kill your son with eels.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of ways to kill somebody, but eels.
Yeah, not the best, not the most pleasant.
Yeah. So yeah, he, basically agrees, because he doesn't really have any other options. He loves his son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we go into the Luminous Incal Part 2. And the Techno Priests have John Difool.
The Techno Pope.
Techno Pope, yes, leader of the Techno Priests.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I believe. Aren't they called Techno Priests in this? Like, right?
I think so. Or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, just,
the technos.
It's techno plus Catholicism, right? Like, but yeah, John Difool has been stripped to just his underwear. He is strapped down to this machine, and they unveil the dark egg, or shadow egg, right? Shadow egg. And it's basically this giant egg. It's attached to this very spider-looking thing, but I think that's just in-universe coincidental.
That's funny.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, and so it's really a big giant egg, and it rises out of their complex and up into space.
Oh, that's gonna come back later. Yes. I got you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, though, John Difool, there is time to cut open John Difool to get the Incal out of him, because it's inside of him, and his pet. Why do I keep forgetting?
Concrete bird, Depot.
Yeah, Depot. I gotta keep remembering that. Depot charges in, shatters the Techno Pope's
miniature shadow egg.
Yes.
For some reason he has a floating egg above his head.
Yes.
And I guess that's the source of his powers, whatever they may be.
It's his psycho abdomen.
Is that what? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did not catch that. I didn't make that connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so he starts to kind of shrivel up, but
and die.
It does reform, though. He regains his power and his youth and stuff like that. But John climbs up the machine that he was previously captured inside of, and there is a hatch on the top, and he goes inside, and the Techno Pope and everybody else are like, oh, well, we're not going to follow him in there, but he's done for, basically, because there's the cardio claw on the inside. It's called the inside outside, I think.
That's funny. I'm not aware.
Yeah.
Or I don't remember.
And then on the inside outside, it's basically what he climbed on top of was a giant globe, and then when he goes inside of it, there is another globe and
a
sphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like he is somewhere, and it's outside. Like it's not like he fell down deep, he is just suddenly on this sphere, and it's like he's outside, but it's dark and black. And then this giant crab appears, and that is the what do they call it? The cardio claw. Yeah.
Getting John steps in.
Yeah, and so this is one of the many times that John tries to call on the power of the Incal, but he's just like, please, or you are mine, you belong to me, you must serve me, you know, things like that. And then like he tries to just rely on his own powers that the Incal has kind of granted him. You know, he's a little bit more like agile and strong and stuff like that. But it doesn't work. He gets trapped, and then finally he begs the Incal, you know, like, you know, I'm yours. And so he shoots lasers from his eyes and destroys the cardio claw. And within the center of the cardio claw, where a like weird animal-ish looking rose has bloomed, is the Black Incal. The opposite to the luminous Incal. And basically the sphere that John had been inside like explodes, and the Technopope and everybody else, his minions, kind of disintegrate. Yeah. And then basically, you know, John is like back on the outside, you know, and the last act of the Technopope is to try and kill John, you know, as he's laying on the ground after that big explosion. But he's saved by a woman riding on a giant rat. And
is that what that was? A rat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not catch that.
Because later she's the queen of rats, you know?
Well, I got that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
It makes sense. I didn't realize.
Yeah. And then, yeah, she saves him. They have an immediate connection, and he is just so magnetically drawn to her that he just gives her the Black Incal, and then she rides away without really saying anything. Yeah, and then he's captured by the Meta Baron, bringing together our heroes of the story.
True.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Kill Wolf Head is levying a rebellion against the president.
Yep.
And yeah, so they're breaking through their defenses. There's a series of tactical decisions that are made, you know, like one person uses a nucleo device, which like whatever that means. And then another side uses a halo, but then yeah, there's
not just any halo, a hyper halo.
A hyper halo. Thank you, hyper halo.
Which does something. Turns people into weird, like, gas bags, I guess?
Yeah. Yes.
Or just a big collection of tumors. I can't tell.
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely kills them. It seems gruesome. Yeah. And so that's all happening. The basically the president is like, oh no, this is really bad. They could actually kill me, and I'm gonna have to talk to the Empress.
Interesting. Because I also missed that connect like that plot point preceding this next event.
Yeah. So the Meta Baron has delivered John to the
Queen of Amok.
Amok, thank you. Queen of Amok. And they are about to try to cut the Incal out of John. Once again. Somebody. Yeah, and
you didn't learn the first time?
Yeah. Meanwhile, like I said, the president is talking to the Empress, who is, you know, this double-sided male-female androgynous person, but like, you know, not just an androgynous person like a single person, but it's like two people who are fused by their backs, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, they and so that's like, you know, the name is Emperor S, you know, it's not just Empress.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and so basically the president is, you know, saying like, you know, you have to do something, you have to help me, they're gonna kill me. And the meanwhile, at the same time, on the other side, there's very much a lot of like going back and forth, trying to rise the tension in this story. The queen of what's her queen?
Amok.
The queen of Amok. You know, she's giving the order to stab John, but the Meta Baron is like, wait, you promised to return my son. Don't stab him until you return him. And then she brings him out, but then he's like, actually, you're just gonna get in my way no matter what. So kill the son, kill the Meta Baron, also stab John. And then an Imperial fleet comes in and attacks the rebellion. That causes a distraction, which, you know, basically is enough time for John to wake up with the power of the Incal. He, you know, incapacitates the guards, and the Meta Baron and his son both jump to safety before they can get, you know, shot. And they take down the little army of the queen. Yeah. And then meanwhile, the president has transferred his body into a machine called the Necroid.
I also missed that.
Yeah, he basically, using the same cloning process, he transfers his consciousness over. So they then decide to work together, and
they being Meta Baron, Queen of Amok, John Difool, and Saloon.
Yes.
The Meta Baron's son.
Yeah, the Meta Baron's son. And Wolfhead.
And Wolfhead, yes.
Yeah. And so the queen says that they have to go to the hidden city, which is underneath the acid lake. But then there's a whirlpool that is not normally there.
And swimming around in an acid lake with a whirlpool. Oof.
Yeah, they have a boat, but the boat is not that acid resistant. So it is slowly dissolving as, you know, they are
going down
the whirlpool. Then they land in a big garbage heap. They just barely make it out of the acid lake.
It's like a planet of garbage.
Yeah.
So like they're trying to they're getting to the center of the earth.
Yeah, and then they're attacked by a bunch of rats, or John is anyway. Well, yeah, they all are, and it seems like at first there's just a few, then there's a bunch, and more and more and more, and then the woman who saved John, after the Techno Pope incident, who has the Black Incal, she explains that these are psycho rats and that they like react to your fear, and that causes them to grow and multiply. So you just have to not fear them and they will dissipate. So yeah, and also I guess one thing I didn't explain earlier is that a lot of these groups that are after the Luminous Incal, they are also trying to combine the Luminous Incal and the Black Incal together. They want both of them so that, you know, they can use their powers combined for like ultimate power, basically. And yeah, so and then the president inside the Necroid, which is like, basically the ultimate killing machine, follows them down. It just kind of flies down the whirlpool without touching most of the acid, into the garbage world. And it's able to, it goes from like kind of a flying saucer thing, but then it grows legs and arms into a giant robot. But then a garbage storm pops up, and so
it's like a sandstorm.
Yeah, like a sandstorm, but they're in a garbage world. So, yeah, and so they have to kind of take shelter for a little while, away from the storm. They do, after the storm passes, they get attacked by the people of the garbage world.
I did not get their name.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think she said it, and I didn't write it down.
Yeah. But they fly up, using the powers of the Luminous Incal and the Black Incal.
They're working together.
They're working together. And they use, like, basically they're inside of this, metal thing, and so they just levitate it up towards the internal sun, which is at the core of the planet. So they're going further and further into the center. They go into, rather than just going straight into the internal sun, though, they go to the base of it because there's a rod running through it. And from there is a labyrinth. What's her name again? The queen of the rats.
Oh.
Anima,
yes.
Anima, thank you. Yeah, Anima knows the way through the labyrinth. Also, she is the sister of the queen of
Amok.
Yeah.
Or Tanata.
Tanata, yes.
Tanata, yeah.
And Tanata had initially, basically, become treacherous and tried to steal the Incal, which kind of created this event,
Ye of little faith.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Necroid is just blasting its way through the labyrinth. It's like, I don't need to know how to get here. I can just blast holes in the walls until I get to the center.
Yep.
Yeah, so they do get to the center first, though, and in order to go to the next part, though, they have to basically be all at peace with each other. So they, basically what's his name? Saloon. Yeah, he is that's Metabaron's son, and he is also the son of Anima.
We should also explain, Saloon is not biologically Metabaron's son,
right?
But, the Metabaron chose to be a father figure for Saloon.
Yeah, and has raised him since he was a baby. Yeah, but
maybe it's just me. I don't like Anima, and part of it comes from this.
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, the person who I have presented as a mother to, you need to apologize to me for projecting onto me being a mom, and also you, my sister, also have to apologize to me because you wanted things.
I missed that.
I mean, I kind of felt like it was her. Anima to me didn't necessarily apologize, but she had to say something and mean it, in order to put saloon at ease,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, like, yeah, I don't think it was like a forgiveness kind of relationship or apology forgiveness relationship, but it is like more of we have to say where everybody is, you know, and bear that emotionality and vulnerability in order to.
And I guess also going back through this, sister, you don't have to apologize to Meta Baron and Saloon and Difool for trying to kill them. You need to apologize to me.
Yeah. Fair.
Because I think, I mean, what it's kind of portrayed as is like get rid of any resentment that you have, and so it's like Wolfhead needs to let go of his resentment for John. I don't remember what John needs to let go of.
Oh no, John didn't have to apologize to anybody. He's just kind of there.
Yeah. But her son needed to let go of his resentment towards his mother. And Tatana, I can't remember her name now.
Yeah.
Tanata had to let go of her resentment towards her sister. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then that, you know, at the last second, you know, Wolfhead is like, I can't forgive John, you know, I just can't. But then, you know, he basically apologizes, which at first I thought that meant like, you know, they knew that the Necroid was like on their heels. I thought he was like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. But apparently that was good enough to send them up to the next level.
Well, so what he was actually saying was like, I'm supposed to forgive this guy. Like, he's saying I'm gonna tear him to bits. Like, but then he's like, but I can't tear him to bits.
Okay.
And then he's like, I'm sorry, John.
I got you. Yeah. Then we jump to, I don't know where these people came from. I'm just gonna say,
yeah. Maybe the Golden Planet.
But it's like a weird, like almost a side story, but it is technically important because
they remind me of
reasons.
They remind me of both elves in Lord of the Rings and the gold people from Guardians of the Galaxy.
A little bit.
Oh yeah, those guys.
Yeah, I don't remember their names.
But basically, they travel to the
Golden Planet.
The Golden Planet, which houses the leaders of the Galactic Empire. And they just kind of crash in there, and they demand, you know, basically attention, and they show off this big rock that everybody's all like, that's just a big piece of coal, like, but then he accuses the technoscientists, who, you know, are a group that govern, and says that they released the shadow egg onto the sun, and that big lump of rock is actually the remnants of a previous sun, of a previous solar system that, you know, the shadow egg had consumed, and that was the remnants of it, and that killed, you know, obviously the entire solar system and, you know, 2 habitated planets. And so this creates, you know, disharmony in the whole Galactic Empire group,
which didn't have much harmony to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, they were all very suspect of each other in the first place. And so they bring on these robots. They're purple. I can't remember what they call them.
Oh yeah.
The Purple Horde. Or no, there's something else.
Yeah.
Trying
to.
Yeah, it's.
Endo guards.
Endo guards, right.
Those not Sentinel, not Manhunter things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Endo guards. And yeah, basically there's a guy, I don't remember his name, but he kind of speaks for the
It's Remo from Kamar.
Remo.
Yes.
From Kamar. Yeah, he speaks for the Emperoress.
Oh wait, maybe I'm okay, never mind. We were thinking of two different people.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. And basically he tells, them to follow the Endo guards to follow their orders, which, then they start shooting on the Emperoress, which, like everybody thought that they were going to shoot at the technoscientists. And so they kill the Emperoress, and he assumes command in a very this is this is obviously a coup, but yeah, you need to follow my orders or I'm going to kill you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this guy is Iman Horlog.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, and now applause. And Kaylee one who doesn't applaud enough.
Yeah. So then, cutting back to our group, they meet with the R-Hats, these group of old people that are in the Crystal Fortress at the center of the internal sun, at the center of the world. And they basically tell them that they, have to pass through this this mirror in order to enter the Crystal Forest, which they are able to do. And but they're warned not to touch any of the crystals, even a little bit, because it will cause the crystals to sing, and the singing will put flesh people to sleep. But for some reason, Depot is too tempted to touch the crystals, and so he touches one feather just lightly to the very tip of one crystal while he's flying.
Right. Which, if you think about it, he's a concrete bird. I didn't even realize that when I first read it, but he's a concrete bird.
Yeah, I mean, he has feathers, though. I assume that it's not like just hard concrete against crystal. Because I feel like the point of being that obvious about it is that, it really is just the subtlest touch will set off the entire forest.
Yeah. And it did.
It did.
And it put them to sleep.
Yeah.
Just long enough for the president to charge in to the forest.
Yeah, and he basically, he turns into the Necroid Panzer, or Necropanzer, excuse me, and just...
which is a tank.
Yeah, a tank, yeah. And he just charges through the mirror. He's like, I don't have to pass through this. I can just... And yeah, he, just keeps, he's rolling over all of the crystals, making them, make noise, but it's described as like a screaming, and that actually wakes up the group. And so they continue further into the forest to a mountain thing.
The Transfiguration? Is that what that is?
I don't know if it has a name. It's a
it's the Doorway of Transfiguration.
Oh, the Doorway of Transfiguration.
Yeah.
Right. And so then they get up to the top. They go through the center, descend down into it, and they get into their places on a, what is that, a hexagon?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
with
Saloon.
Yeah, in the middle. And he is basically supposed to be the perfect androgyny. And so he sheds his physical form and becomes that. And they enter, the Doorway of Transfiguration. this rainbow space, with two opposing pyramids, a white pyramid and a black pyramid, that represent the Black Incal and the Luminous Incal. And basically the Incals themselves are the tips of those pyramids. They belong on top of each other. And so they are able to basically, through concentration, they put the Incals on top of the pyramids, and the pyramids transform into a spaceship.
Let's not forget this point too. This is where it comes out that John Difool is the true biological father of Saloon.
Yes.
And it is very much like a Batman Catwoman situation. How Damian came into me, right?
Talia.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said
not
Catwoman.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Talia. Yeah. Sorry. Not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, a bit, I suppose. Yeah. Basically, the Anima basically transformed herself to look like a sex worker robot. And, kind of under false pretenses, used John's genetics to impregnate herself and give birth to Saloon. And yeah, basically he's not happy about that.
No. I mean, who would be?
Yeah, no. And yeah, so then by this point, the president's necroid is essentially just a camera with spider-like legs because it's gone through so much destruction going through the step. Yeah. Also, we did not mention that it has been broadcasting up to the surface world of all of the different people, and basically it's supposed to be like, yes, I'm the president and I'm doing this, and you'll, really,
appreciate.
You'll really appreciate what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But because, the necroid has gone through so much damage, John can just attack it and destroy it, basically. And, he basically says to the whole world, leave your con-apts, go into the world, go towards the light. And he takes the president with him, there's the little, computer that is the president now. And, takes off its legs and stuff like that. And meanwhile, the sun is being consumed by the dark egg, and they are off. I don't really know what their plan is actually from here, but that is where we stopped reading.
Yeah. We'll also add, going back, like the beginning of the second volume, we see the techno people send a black egg up, which comes out later to have also been that the remnants of, or it consumed a sun and all that, and that what was remaining of that was the thing that looked like coal.
Yeah, we said all that.
Just wanted to
reiterate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so the black egg, or the dark
shadow
egg is apparently back. Swallowing the sun.
Right. Yes. Okay. So
that was a lot.
Yeah. So what did you guys think of this story?
Jake, take it away.
I didn't really enjoy my reading experience.
Yeah.
Mostly because like stuff just seemed to happen. Because like there's a whole fight where all of a sudden there's a riot going on and they're trying to kill the president for some reason. It seems like they have like a bad life, the lower class, but like that's never established enough that there could be some other reason they're rebelling. I don't know.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the techno like society has created this weird spider thing which kills sons for some reason. And then that becomes evidence, so they bring it to the emperor, which is then a coup, but why?
And then
This
to what ends, for what story?
Yeah.
This book is very much vibes.
Yeah, I guess. Which is probably why I like The President, where it's like, no, all this stuff is dumb. I'm not going to go through the labyrinth. I'm not going to forgive anybody. I'm going to, like, brute strength my way through all these dumb riddles. And also the Crystal Forest, because that's dumb.
No, I like a lot of the ideas that it's dealing in, but it's like, this is like super compressed even. Like if you think about like the actual time in story, I think that we're like in a weekend. Like it's been like maybe 2 days.
Wow.
For these 3 chapters, 150 pages, where so much happens.
It's like playing the Arkham games, and you realize like all those are like within a day.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, that realization I don't think is to the story's benefit either.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I mean, this is intentional, but again, I'm not sure that it's for the best to me. That John Difool is just a plot device. You know, I mean, it's called the Incal, not, you know, John Difool. But yeah, he doesn't really matter a whole lot, you know, and we do get insight into like how he feels. Like, I mean, quite literally, there's literalizations of how he feels sometimes.
But even then, that isn't really brought up much.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, he's just so plain, you know? He's just kind of a plain reader insert kind of character. There's not much to attach to on him. So it's like, it's these like kind of situations where it's like, you almost like, you feel like, oh, that sucks, you know, or that's funny. But at the same time, it's like this, you know, inability to fully empathize with the characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, Yeah.
That's what makes them trying to let go of their resentment just fall completely flat on its face. Because there's no... there's like establishing of their feelings enough to really care, like that they make up. And it's like, it also happens where it's like, you make up. Okay, fine, I'll make up because that's what the plot calls for. And there's no, like, we don't get that, their actual like frustration. I mean, we get Saloon's frustration a little bit, because Saloon talks to his dad about, hey, like, my mom won't even look at me. Like, but that's the most we get. And we don't even, I guess it's assumed that the Queen of Amok and Anima are estranged, but that's also from context, not like actually shown.
Yes.
And so it just falls flat when they try to do some emotional moment. And it's not dealt with. It's like kind of, we need to move this along.
Mm-hmm.
In which, like, if you're going to do something like that, like, I feel like you would need to have established those kind of relationship dynamics way earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
And have already been building up to them working through their issues.
Yeah.
But this is, I'd argue, a lot more of a plot-focused book. So.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. It's just like, it is not interested in its characters. It's interested in its plot and its world building.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, and it feels like even the pacing reminds me of like, I've read some like Golden Age Captain Marvel, which is, the Shazam, if you're not familiar with that Captain Marvel.
I actually needed that.
Yeah. It's a very much like, and then this, and suddenly, meanwhile, all of that kind of stuff without a lot of like, you're not, it doesn't feel as much like you are constructing the story by reading it. It is, you are being presented these things. Which, maybe that comes from its origins of being a film initially, or, parts of a film. I'm not sure really if that's, how that started, but yeah, it's like, it doesn't have the pacing where you're like, yeah, this is what I expect to happen next, And not in the way like, story obviously doesn't need to be like all expected things, but it should be like, oh, I see, where this comes from as I'm in the moment.
Right. I mean, I mentioned several times, oh, that's connected to that? Oh, I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that's me forgetting. I just think that the story is not written in a way where it's easily traced.
Yeah.
The cause and effect of some of these things.
Right. I will say that I think that it is really cool. I like that they, have kind of a very surrealist world that reminds me in ways of like Alice in Wonderland, except for like so many things just take Alice in Wonderland, but this doesn't have any like, I am taking Alice in Wonderland and like sci-fi-ing it,
Oh, okay.
But it's like, it is that same surrealism that, inspired so many alternate things, where it's just all like, yeah, this is this weird world, and, we're not really going to explain it to you, but it's like a warping of our world, and we have like these weird like hunchback guards, and we have like, these robots, and just all of this stuff, all of these kingdoms and things, and it's totally foreign to our current world, but at the same time, not totally foreign, because, it still has these wars and politics and, but it's like very, very surreal and kind of like poetic. But at the same time, I feel like that needs to be charged with some sort of sense making.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, like, to me, a lot of like I don't know if it's necessarily imagery, but like there's a lot of things that they introduce that are like, oh, that sounds interesting, like journeying to the center of the earth, techno magic or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that all sounds interesting. I mean, Crystal Forest, like I think that this book introduces a lot of interesting elements.
Yeah, I think really it just needs to be and maybe it's just the nature of, heavy metal magazine, of like, the serialization, that like, you don't know like how many chapters you're going to be able to get out and like have a completed story. But yeah, I feel like we could have spent so much more time in each area with each character, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, understood more about the world. Like, you know, if you're going to be so concerned about world building, like, let's really build it out.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, you know, it feels like, you know, the cartoons where like, you know, you to make a bridge, you know, you attach one plank of wood to the ground, and then you go out on that plank of wood and nail another one out, you know? It's
I see. Yeah.
It's like, you're not really making something that will hold up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's weird to say all of this criticism to me just in how it is so regarded and respected, you know, in the industry, and, you know, as far as like comics criticism at large. It's like, am I missing something? You know, like,
man, I mean, chalk that up to one more. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there are other parts of it that I really did appreciate. I mean, the art, for one thing, I think is really, really good. But, you know, that's just Mobius, you know. Mobius is a good artist, and tells a really clean story. But yeah, like, I mean, I'm looking here, like, I mean, I guess this is a perhaps poor quote, considering our feelings about this particular author, but Mark Millar called it, quite simply, one of the most perfect comics ever conceived, and probably the most beautiful piece of graphic literature ever drawn.
Wow. That is something.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Mark Millar is a person of extremes.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
Right. Rolling Stone magazine put it in its 50 best non-superhero graphic novels list, placed as number 30. So that's kind of low on a top 50 list, but yeah. I don't know. I've just heard like really, really great things about this book. And so that's that, you know, like, and when I hear really great things about a book, I try not to have my my expectations set too high, because you know, that's happened before and I've been like, wow. But for one thing, I just really couldn't help it with this one. Like, it has been like so like put up as like a top, you know, especially in terms of like European comics that, like, you know, are outside of the American mode of like comic book storytelling. And yeah, just, to me, it didn't really work, you know, to those expectations.
No.
So yeah, I mean, if anybody you know, has any feelings, you know, about what I might have missed, you know, reach out. But yeah, that's kind of, you know, I think a lot of the ideas are really cool, but it's never, you know, like a perfect story. And it really does feel like kind of like hearkening back to like the idea of like, oh, a book doesn't really need to have a great story, a comic book. You know, it just needs to have great art, you know, and I'm like,
thank goodness we're past that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think even with that in mind, I do really enjoy the art. I just wish we stuck with some of the art a little more.
What do you mean?
Because there is like, there is some imagery in this that I really like the black egg, like when we are first introduced to it, and it's like unfolded, and it's just like weird spider looking thing hanging over everybody. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
But that's like, you get that one page and then it destroys some spaceships later, and in this like 150 pages, that's all we see of it.
Gotcha.
Like, it doesn't have to be, because I don't think it is supposed to be the main antagonist, at least for these 3 books. But I wish we had seen a little more of that, and maybe we will if we keep reading. But boy, I don't want to keep reading this.
So, question, and kind of anyway, do we understand why these group of people are doing what they're doing? Like, why they're traveling to the center of the earth? Why do they want to combine the Incal? Like, what do they hope to accomplish?
I don't even know what the Incal is.
Fair.
Yeah, that's a pretty important question that isn't still easy to explain. It is the power of the universe, kind of. I mean,
don't know.
Yeah, it is like basically if you have both of them, you're kind of God.
But also at some points you talk to it and run on faith, but then other times you just don't.
Yeah.
So to me, I read 1 volume like each day.
Yeah.
And I felt like I could not keep the events in my mind to like connect them throughout all this. And I'm just like, so I get to the end of it. I'm like, why are they doing anything? Like, I don't understand. Like, what do they hope to accomplish? That's what's lost to me.
Yeah.
Well, because Anima keeps telling them, this is like the next step of the thing we have to do.
Yeah.
Like, we have to go through the labyrinth, and then we have to forgive each other, and then we have to go through the crystal forest, and we have to dive down to do something to get to the where you do the ceremony, where you have to give up your physical form, my son, and also this dude's son, to become a spaceship for something. I don't think we've gotten there yet. What's the spaceship for?
We did skip over that. Like, Saloon totally is just disembodied and is just...
But it's fine because he says he's okay with it.
Right.
Yeah. It feels great to be a giant spaceship, actually.
Maybe it does. We don't know. To be completely fair, we don't know. Maybe it feels great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, for what?
Because Anima says so, which is probably also why I don't like Anima that much.
Yeah, it's very much the leader knows the plan, and it'll be revealed as we do the plan. So don't worry about it. Very, very Reed Richards. Yeah, I feel like, because what's needing to happen is basically they do reunite the Luminous and Black Incal into their proper places, because they had been stolen by Tanada. Yes, they'd been stolen by Tanada.
Yep.
But why?
Right.
Why? Because they give her power.
To do what? I guess to take over the world?
Yeah, take over the world. Take over the galaxy.
Sense, actually. Yeah.
Galactic conquest, I
but
guess.
But that happens when they don't have the Incal. Like, the revolution starts and they don't have the Incal.
That's true. They don't have any of them.
Yeah.
And it continues while they also don't have it, and they just run away.
I mean, well, to be fair, I'm pretty sure Tanada thought that she could get to the Luminous Incal by the time the riot.
Like, I guess, but then I feel like...
actually, that's right, because they started the riot, and they had John on the operating table to get the Luminous Incal. They didn't know that he didn't have the Black Incal, or that the Techno Pope didn't have it either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that feels like they're really counting their eggs before they hatch.
Yeah.
Like, where if you start it and you think you're going to have it in 10 minutes, or however long it's going to take, why can't you wait that length of time?
Because it's the perfect time to start the riot.
But you don't have the thing that's going to make the riot possible. Whatever. Like, I don't know why I'm getting so upset about this.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that it's like, it all makes sense. But there are, I think that Jodarowski is like still somewhat of a capable storyteller. I think that this is like I do think that a lot of this is actually intentional, and that's like I guess I feel more comfortable in that way saying that I just don't like it. I see what you mean.
It's like not that this is just poorly constructed, but it's constructed in a particular
Maybe
way
just
that I
because
don't
we're
like.
not French. Maybe if we were French, this would make more sense.
Maybe
if you're reading it in original language.
I mean, I honestly, like, I don't know if this is true, but that was my first thought of like how certain people are drawn naked, and like I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I mean
feel like that is fairly French.
Yeah, no, that is a aspect of European comics in general.
That's a.
Yeah, like when we
read, my puritanical American sensibilities cannot handle that.
That's specifically why we left. Jake agrees.
I mean, yeah, that was something that came up when we read 5,000 kilometers a second.
Yes.
There was also a lot of casual nudity there, and I think that was a Spanish comic?
Italian.
Mm-hmm. Also European. Whatever.
Yes, also European. Correct, yeah. Yeah, that also came up there. Yeah, I was going to say, though, well, for one thing, a little bit more context about, European comics. They did not go through the same morality trials, essentially.
They didn't have an equivalent to the comics code.
Yes, yeah.
Gotcha.
Nor did they have any comics burning, or just any of that. I mean, I think it still took a while for comics to be considered a valued art form. But yeah, they had a lot of very well liked comics, like Tintin, for instance.
Is it Valorant? I think is that another one too.
Might
Valorian.
Valorian.
I
Yes,
think that's what it is.
Yes. Yeah, there was a movie for that, and that is also a popular French comic. Yeah, and also trying to think of what else. There was another example I had, but yeah, yes, lots of European comics to come out that just did not have to deal with the idea that like, oh, these are just for kids, and in that sense, like, nudity would not be for kids, like, drug use would not be for kids. Yes, I mean, the same kind of thing happened with manga in the East, they developed genres that were for kids and genres that were for adults. And those got to just develop side by side, essentially.
Gotcha.
Whereas it started, it started with comics for adults and newspapers, and then comic books, and then comics are for kids, and then we'll just keep growing up these kids' comics until they're for adults.
we grow them up in a way that they don't notice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say, so reading this comic, they were talking about the Techno Pope, and immediately I'm like, okay, my guard is up. I don't know if I'm gonna like where this is going, because and then they say like ona ove tenebra, which apparently tenebra. So ove is apparently Italian, I guess, because I tried to Google translate this.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not true, but ove is like where I think,
Okay.
and then tenebra is an actual Christian event.
Oh.
I did not know that. And so, but I was just like, I don't like where this is going. But then I finally understood, Cody, what you have been trying to say for a while. And that is that
this is
if you're upset over things that are supposed to be upsetting. So the technopopes are not supposed to be likable. And I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Also, yeah, I think the only reason he's called the Techno Pope is because the psycho abdomen thing also looks like the Pope's hat.
Yeah.
I think that's as deep as it goes.
No, because they are a religious order.
Well, yeah, but it's also like technology. They're like doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like stuff's happening. And they're making like robots out of corpses.
Exactly. I mean, it's a technology religion. It's the Techno Pope.
Well, yeah, but it also looks like the hat.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, the design. Yeah, I think you're right.
We agree. It's just not the only reason.
Yeah, yes. It goes slightly deeper than that.
I don't know. I'm thinking the hat is the most important part.
Yeah, no, you were right. The technos are not supposed to be likable. Gosh, I feel like I was going to say something else and I totally forgot. But yeah, man, I guess I'll talk about something else though. I'll hopefully come back to it. But yeah, I think that I did like the idea kind of the technos. And it was weird though that it seemed like there was two sects of them, because there was the ones in the Golden Planet.
I think those are. I don't think that's another sect. I think like those are the people that replaced the people because they all got burned.
But they're all like, they're trying to frame us. We're not doing that, and I couldn't tell if they were just lying.
I think they were lying because I think it's the panel right before the dude gets up and he's like, or it's the panel right before the Endo robots or whatever Endo guards start shooting at the Mega Holiness, and they're like, have patience. Everything is going to work out. And so
interesting, yeah. Also, I did remember actually what I was going to say before, because you were talking about the translation of
Tenebra.
Yeah, so I didn't look up what Tenebra was, but I did try to translate Ove. And the translation that Google brought me was sheep. So I just thought they were chanting sheep, sheep, sheep.
That is so weird.
Yeah.
Because that is very different. Sheep, that's funny. Was that in French or do you remember?
I think it was in French.
Okay. I could believe that.
Yeah. So that's what I thought. And I thought that, yeah, they were just calling John a sheep, like you don't, you're not a believer,
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know, I guess in Christian.
Well, yeah, sheep
are good. Sheep are.
It's like sheep are like, follow Like Jesus is leading the sheep.
Yeah.
But like sheep are really dumb. So.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It could go either way if they're like, yeah, we're sheep, or if they're calling him a sheep, or if it's kind of just supposed to be taken both ways and it's supposed to be funny. Yeah, or maybe it wasn't supposed to mean sheep at all and I just don't speak French.
Fair. So actually, thinking about Tenebra a little bit more. So what Tenebra is or Tenebrae is it's Western Christian. It's a religious service, Western Christianity, held 3 days before Easter, and characterized by gradual extinguishing of candles and by a loud noise taking place in total darkness near the end of the service. And so to me, I'm like, well, I guess with the shadow egg and their whole like dark, theme, I guess I can see where someone would be like, yeah, this would fit.
Yeah, okay. The extinguishing of light, basically. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
A big, yeah. I mean, maybe they are doing a tenebrae where it's like, but the candles are, or the suns are the candles.
Okay.
And then trying to lead to the rebirth of a,
Techno Jesus.
A techno Jesus. Thank you. That's what I was looking for, actually. Yeah. They're trying to rise techno Jesus. It's all right there. You just have to think about it.
When I was saying you had to piece that together?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, that was said with a little bit of sarcasm. If you didn't pick up on that, I am not now on the side of this book. But yeah, I don't think that there's much more solid opinions. I guess like to talk a little bit more about the art. I did think that there's just like kind of the very like geometric designs of Mobius sometimes are really striking. The coloring is really striking. I think that it's like, just a very different mode of art, comics art, than what we usually see in American comics.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not my kind of art, and so that's all I can say. Like I can tell a lot of work went into this. Kind of like what you're saying. It's intentional, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I really like it. But yeah, it is like sometimes a little bit like, I don't know, dingy. Like there's a lot of like texture going on. And that's just Mobius's style. But I do like a lot of like the gradients, a lot of like the shading and coloring to like make, light shine on certain areas when there's supposed to be light, and like, shadows where there isn't the light shining. I think all of that is done really well, and like I mentioned gradients, like, there's like, for instance, the sky, and it like, gets lighter towards the horizon and stuff like that. A lot of like, just thoughtfulness going into it. What about you, Jake?
I like the art. I like that there was some substance to, maybe that's the wrong word. Like there's a lot of texture, what you were saying about like the grit to it. I like that. And like I said, there is some imagery that is good,
but
man, wish we got to see some more of it. Unless, I don't know, weird riots where like 90% of the participants die, except for the one wolf guy.
Yeah. There was also some times where I was like, it was weird. I guess it was specifically the scene right before the people that crash on into the Golden Planet, where the speech bubbles, like it's one person talking, but they're like separated, and it's like totally just like, it kind of feels like the way that I think William Shatner, like people joke about him talking in like Star Trek, where it's all like,
where it's all like pauses all the time.
Yes, that's what it felt like.
Oh, I see what you
mean. Just because, he, like, their speech was just separated with ellipses, to
I thought you meant that their, like, the actual box was like moved away.
Oh, no,
but I got what you mean.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I think in this comic there were times where what I was talking about of like the speech bubbles is like, or not even sometimes bubbles, but rectangles are just like moved too far away.
Yeah, definitely. And like, there's so many of them sometimes that like, it's like, wait, what order do I read these in? They're not perfectly like left to right.
Yeah. And there are also two occasions where it's like someone's talking, but the speech bubble doesn't, like, it connects to the gutters. Which is like, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely constructed in a way that is not, what we are used to, American-wise. I'd be curious to compare and contrast this to some other contemporary European comic. Even something that also ran in heavy metal.
Okay.
I will say too, it was interesting thinking about this. Some of the art also did remind me a little bit of Dave Gibbons' art in Watchmen. Definitely, like, I mean, they have different art styles, but I'm like, I can see, maybe some influence or like, similar influences between the two.
Oh, gotcha.
Just both being, European, artists in the 80s.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave Gibbons.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, working together.
Was that the British takeover?
Yeah. Yep, British invasion of comics.
British invasion. There you go.
Yeah. But yeah. So I mean, Jake, you said that you're not really interested to read any more of this. Did you have any more thoughts about that, or no?
No. No desire to read any further.
Yeah, I mean, I have this book. I think I will at least, read the last 3 chapters just to say, okay, this is, the complete Incal. Then there's just the sequel and the prequel. But I can say that I did it, and maybe I can come back next week and be like, oh guys, I was wrong. It all makes sense now. It's good now.
It is truly the greatest work of comic books ever.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think, it is interesting that, Jodarowski, he has like, I mean, there's also spin-offs. It's the Yodaverse.
No way.
So yeah, there's the Meta Barons series. And then there's also 2 other works, Megalex and the Techno Priests. That's probably where I got Techno Priests from, if it doesn't actually say it in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff to potentially read from him. But yeah, I'm not sure that. Yeah, I'm not interested to. I'm maybe interested to check out some of his films that he made. Those are apparently very good.
Okay, so he has more than that.
Oh yeah. That was just one thing,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, he didn't just fail to make a 14-hour Dune adaptation. Yeah, he's a well-known filmmaker. So yeah, and I'm interested to read some Mobius comics too, honestly. He worked on some Silver Surfer that he, funnily, they paired him up with Stan Lee. And Mobius has reflected on that experience and said that Stan Lee was difficult to work with. That's that tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, not the most scathing, so.
Yeah. He might have said more, but
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he draws Silver Surfer well. I've seen some pages from that, and it looks cool. Okay. So kind of interested to check that out. Among other works that he's worked on. Yeah. Oh, also, just for one last little thing, I would say too, Mobius's real name is Jean Giraud. Giraud? Giraud, yeah.
Oh, that's what I would say.
Just in case, trying to look him up. I mean, you can also just look up Mobius and it will bring you to that Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
But to fully credit him. Yeah. So what about you, Talon?
Yeah. I'm not going to read any further.
Okay.
But I would be interested in seeing some of his movies.
Okay. Yeah. And no more of the Yodaverse.
No.
Okay. Yeah. All right then. Well, I think that's all we have for the show. Thank you everybody for listening. I'm Cody.
I'm Talon.
And I'm Jacob.
And this has been the Comic Panel. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to this channel as it helps us out on the YouTube algorithms and getting us seen by more and more people. You can also reach out to us with any thoughts you have on the things we talked about on Twitter at TheComicPanel1 and on Instagram and Facebook at TheComicPanel. Also, if you want to leave a comment, please do. Let us continue the conversation.